I was born in the Netherlands. I lived in Holland for 11 years and moved to New York City. Learned English, went to Our Lady of Sorrows, graduated #1 in my school, and ended up going to the best math and science high school in New York called Stuyvesant High School. That's where I got to touch computers for the first time. These were the days of punch cards, and I would put in my punch card program today, and I would get the result, which is the printout, 2 days later. That was the turnaround time. That wasn't good enough for me, so I cheated, and I made 6 copies of my program and put one in each drawer of each class. So I had a turnaround time of 4 hours, and my teacher couldn't understand how I was so fast. The end of high school, I'm 18. I moved to Hawaii. Boy, I spent a year surfing and diving. You know, if there were waves, I'd be surfing. If there was no waves, I'd be diving. I was in the water every day. I was a fish. And one day I read in the newspapers, oh my goodness, I can go to night school and have access to computers. My dream. I loved computers. You know, I could ICS 301, you know, learn how to program in BASIC. So I said, Dad, I have access. And about a week into it, my teacher called me in and said, Mr. Rogers, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean, what are you doing? I says, well, you've already used as much computer time as an average student uses in a semester. And I showed him the programs I was working on, and he says, okay, carry on. You know, every assignment that we got, I went extra credit. I was so good that he hired me as a TA, and I graded all the papers for the next ICS 301 class. So I actually got a job, which was very useful. People ask me, what did you study? You know, what was your major? And I always say, I majored in computer science and I minored in Dungeons and Dragons. We had a organization at Campus Center called ARG, the Alternative Recreational Realities Group of Hawaii. You know, the first D&D books, they were like little tiny books, and they didn't really have enough information to actually play the game. You had to make up stuff. So we had all these additional rules, and we called them ARG rules. And so that fleshed out for the dungeon masters and for the players how to play D&D. After, I don't know, I guess it was half a year, I ran out of computer classes that I could take in night school. And my teacher said, well, you know, if you want more computer time, you're going to have to go to day school. And so I said to my teacher, well, I'm not going to take any of my core requirements. And he says, I'm not saying that you have to take your core requirements. All I'm saying is that if you want more computer time, you're going to have to go to day school. I said, okay, I'll go. So I went to day school. I took all the computer classes I could take, and I took only the classes that I was interested in, which is pretty much all the science classes. I even took religion and the meaning of existence, you know, some history, stuff that I was interested in. At the end of 3 years, they called me in and they said, another Mr. Rogers story. Mr. Rogers, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, you haven't taken any of your core requirements. And I said, well, I've already been to high school. And then they said, well, if you're not going to take your core requirements, you're not going to graduate. I said, there must be some mistake. I'm not here to graduate. I'm here to get an education. And I've already got my education. Thank you very much. And I chased the girl to Japan, and that was it. I went to Japan, and there was no way for me to access computers. And so I ended up working for my father in the gemstone business for 6 years. And then personal computers came out, and I go, oh my gosh, this is my chance. Got my whole hands on a computer, I went to Akihabara, which is the electronics center in Tokyo. What are people buying? They have to do with computer, because I was ready to do an accounting software, for Christ's sakes. And I found out, wow, people are buying games. Games? And they were mostly like little tiny shooting games and jumping platform games. There were some simulation war games, a little bit more complicated. But there were no role-playing games. And I thought, oh, yeah, I can do this. And, at that time in the US, we already had Ultima and Wizardry. What I didn't know was that in Japan, there was no Dungeons and Dragons. Oh my gosh, okay, I have to teach people how to, play this game. I wrote the first 2 games for the company, or for my company. Came to the conclusion that I couldn't do this for the rest of my life. Basically, writing a computer game is a full-time job. In fact, it's more than a full-time job. I was running the company and I was making computer games. And you can't do both. I had to choose. And so I started traveling around the world, looking for games to bring to Japan. Here we are at Earl's Court. This is the 1988 Personal Computer Show. Hank, is that so far?
This is Shanghai on the Sega machine. It's pretty good. Thank you. Hey, Rob.
Yes, here we have Hank Rogers from BPS. Yes, he's over here breaking in and expanding the UK software market. He's expanding in many different ways, taking over the world.
I hired programmers to actually take those games and move them to the Japanese computers. I'd published 2 of the first 4 Electronic Arts games, Archon and Mule. They were amazing games, by the way. I published the Star Wars games. I made LucasArts. I made deals with companies all over the world. I was more nimble than the Japanese companies, because generally the way it works in Japan is somebody sees a game, they bring it to Japan, and then they have all the buchos, all of the managers have to all agree, yes, this is a good game. And that takes too long. I'm the president of the company. I could make the decision. I spoke English. I had that advantage and I used it. I licensed a bunch of games. And one of the games that I licensed in that way was a little game called Tetris. I decided I'm going to make a game. I was going to have warriors and clerics and magic users, and I was going to have all these different character classes. In my imagination, this game was going to be this big. What did I know about what a computer can do? I didn't, and I didn't know how to read, speak, or write Japanese. My wife could read, but she didn't understand anything about what was written in the manual, so that was kind of useless. And all the manuals were in Japanese, so I had to hack the computer the whole time. I had 64K, so I made a role-playing game within 64K, all graphics, no text, or a little bit of text. I started writing it all in BASIC, and then the 3D part. When I wrote the 3D in BASIC, it was like the walls were like, that's speed, and then you would take a step, bunk, and then it would I said, no, there's no way this game can take that long. And so I decided to take that part of the game and write it in assembler. When I was done with that, you push the button, it happened immediately. There was no, you couldn't tell that it was drawing anything. And I was like, that was the first time I really understood how fast assembler was, or conversely, how slow BASIC was. There's a sample monster here. This is the demon. 10K for all monster graphics, and 10K for all people graphics. I think they were about equal in weight. I based the graphics on, on miniatures. Because when we played Dungeons and Dragons, we played them with miniatures. And so you had little people, and every time you went and you bought a new piece of armor, you would see it. And so you graphically could see your group up to 5 warriors getting better and better and better. And I made a dot matrix graphic editor so that I could draw each monster dot by dot. He's already bought armor, he's already bought a shield, he's already bought a sword. I mean, he's already an advanced level character. The only thing that wasn't graphic was potions. Potion, you could see whether you had a little bottle as a potion, but you couldn't tell how many potions you had in your bottle. It's up to 5 potions. I wanted a package that was a little bit more expensive than the other packages. All the other packages were paper. Part of the reason is my game was 7,800 yen, when all the other games were 6,800 yen. And the reason for that is because I believed that my game had longer gameplay.
The painting in my office was painted by Roger Dean, known for doing things like the Yes Band logo. And this painting that's hanging in my office was the cover of an RPG game that Hank created called the Black Onyx. And this was the Famicom version of the game. The painting is called Freya's Castle. And Freya actually is Roger's daughter.
That game, it took me 9 months to build. And I would say that's my lifetime greatest achievement. I mean, when you think about it, like today, if somebody gave you 64K and say make a role-playing game, that would be tough. Now, I used to be in the gem business, so I knew all about how to. I told my dad I need 1,000 black onyx. The first 100 people that found the onyx and send me the secret password, which was Yggdrasil, which is the tree of life, I would send them a real black onyx. Black Onyx turned out to be the #1 game in Japan in 1984. I published it myself. My company was Bulletproof Software. And I was all of a sudden a folk hero in the computer game world in Japan. at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. My job is to find games to bring to Japan. And the way it works is there are like hundreds of monitors from dozens of companies, all showing games. And the people are lined up to play those games, for a couple of minutes to get an impression.
He was trying to have a Go game. He was really into Go. He had this other game he was working on called Black Onyx. But everybody was playing this game in our booth. Tetris, Hank came over to play.
So I stand in line, and there I play Tetris for the first time. And, then I go and play other games, and I find myself standing in line at the Tetris machine again. And I play again. I said, oh, okay. And I go away, and I find the fourth time I'm standing in this line is like, I'm really hooked on this game.
And he sees my name on the top of the high score list. So he sits there for hours trying to knock me off the list.
I put the high score on the game. I beat Gilman Louis' high score on that game.
He meets up with Phil.
I showed it to Hank for the first time. Hank loved it.
Phil takes Hank into a meeting with me.
And so I started negotiating with Gilman about Tetris for Japan.
And Hank goes, I want to get the Japanese rights.